30 seconds before wheels up, a single radio call froze an entire runway, and the voice giving that order belonged to a woman who, 20 minutes earlier, had been told by the ramp supervisor himself to get off the property before he called the police. Good evening, I'm Captain Marcus Brooks. After 28 years in the skies, I thought I'd seen every kind of pilot, every kind of ground crew, every kind of close call. I was wrong. Tonight, let me tell you what happened at Cedar Fork Regional, and how the woman a supervisor tried to throw off his ramp ended up being the only reason a plane full of people didn't take off with a problem that could have ended in disaster. This one moves fast, so stick with me all the way to the end. And if these stories mean something to you, hit subscribe right now, because there's always another flight worth telling. Vanessa Cole arrived at Cedar Fork Regional Airport just after 7 that morning, dressed in plain khakis and a windbreaker, carrying a slim black case and a clipboard, walking the perimeter fence line toward the general aviation ramp without any fanfare or announcement. She was 36 years old, unremarkable in appearance to anyone who didn't already know exactly what she did for a living, and that morning, almost nobody at Cedar Fork did. Grant Pierce, the ramp supervisor for Skybridge Charters, a small regional operator running short hops between 3 nearby cities, spotted her walking near one of his aircraft and crossed the tarmac with the brisk, territorial energy of a man used to controlling exactly who came near his equipment. "Ma'am, this is a restricted operations area," he said, stopping a few feet from her. "You can't be out here without an escort. I'm going to need you to head back to the terminal." "I understand," Vanessa said calmly, reaching into her jacket for a badge clipped to an inner pocket. "I'm actually here to—" "I don't need to see whatever that is," Grant interrupted, waving a hand dismissively without so much as glancing at what she was holding out. "We get tourists and plane spotters out here all the time, thinking a badge from some website gets them ramp access. It doesn't. I need you off this property before I call airport security." Vanessa studied him for a moment, something calm and unhurried in her expression, and lowered the badge back into her pocket without pressing the issue further. "Understood," she said simply. "I'll step back to the fence line." She didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. She simply smiled, the small, patient smile of someone who had encountered this exact kind of dismissal more times than she cared to count, and walked calmly back toward the perimeter, her clipboard still in hand, her eyes never once leaving the aircraft parked on Grant's ramp. What Grant Pierce had just waved off without a second glance was a credential from the Federal Aviation Administration, identifying Vanessa Cole as a senior aviation safety inspector, currently conducting an unannounced ramp inspection of Skybridge Charters following 2 anonymous maintenance complaints filed with the agency over the previous month. She hadn't come to cause trouble. She'd come to check whether those complaints had any merit, and Grant Pierce had just made that determination considerably easier for her. From the fence line, Vanessa continued her observation exactly as her job required, watching the ramp crew prepare Skybridge's morning charter, a 12-seat aircraft scheduled to carry a group of business travelers on a short regional hop. She noted the ground crew's fueling procedure, the loading sequence, the pre-flight walk-around performed by the flight crew, each detail logged carefully on her clipboard, without a single word exchanged with anyone on the ramp. Roughly 15 minutes into her observation, something caught her attention that made her posture shift, subtle but unmistakable to anyone who might have been watching closely, which nobody was. During the pilot's walk-around inspection, a ground handler had closed the aircraft's rear cargo door quickly, without the audible double-click confirmation the latch mechanism was designed to produce, a detail Vanessa had trained herself over years to catch even from a distance, the kind of small procedural shortcut that rarely caused a problem until, occasionally, catastrophically, it did. She watched closely as the pilot completed his walk-around, moving past the cargo door without testing the latch himself, trusting the ground crew's work the way pilots reasonably did dozens of times a day without incident. Passengers began boarding a few minutes later, laughing and chatting, entirely unaware of the small, quiet observation happening from the far side of the fence line. Vanessa pulled out her phone and made a call to the airport's control tower, identifying herself formally and requesting immediate confirmation of her federal credentials through official channels before she said another word about what she'd observed. The tower controller, following protocol without hesitation, verified her identification within minutes through the FAA's regional office, the response coming back fast enough that Vanessa was already moving back toward the operations gate by the time confirmation cleared. "I need Skybridge's morning charter held before departure," she told the controller. "There's a potential cargo door latch issue I observed during boarding. I need it checked before that aircraft moves another inch." The tower controller relayed the hold instruction immediately, and Skybridge's aircraft, already taxiing toward the runway threshold with its cargo fully loaded and passengers belted in for departure, rolled to a stop 30 seconds before its scheduled takeoff clearance. The pilot's voice came back over the frequency, confused and slightly irritated at the unexpected delay. "Tower, Skybridge 41, say reason for hold." "Skybridge 41, hold position. FAA inspector reports a possible cargo door latch issue, requesting visual confirmation before further movement." Grant Pierce, standing near the operations building and monitoring the radio traffic on a handheld unit, felt his stomach drop as the words registered fully. He looked toward the fence line where he'd sent the woman in the windbreaker less than 20 minutes earlier and found her already walking back onto the ramp, credentials now clipped visibly to the outside of her jacket, moving toward the held aircraft with brisk, purposeful authority. "That's her," he said out loud to nobody in particular, his voice tight with dawning realization. Vanessa reached the aircraft as ground crew moved into position to inspect the cargo door under her direction, her instructions calm and precise. The same unhurried authority she'd carried through the entire morning, finally given full and immediate weight. The inspection confirmed exactly what she'd suspected from across the fence line. The latch mechanism hadn't fully engaged during the earlier rushed closure, a defect that likely would have held during a smooth flight, but carried real risk of failure under turbulence or a hard landing. The kind of failure that could result in the door separating mid-flight, with passengers and cargo directly behind it. "Ground the aircraft," Vanessa said to the Skybridge maintenance supervisor, who'd arrived at a near run once the severity of the situation became clear. "Full inspection of that latch mechanism and the two others on this aircraft type before anything with this configuration flies again today." Grant approached her once the passengers had been safely deplaned and rebooked on a replacement aircraft, his earlier bravado completely gone, replaced by something closer to genuine dread. "Ma'am, I didn't know. This morning at the fence I had no idea who you were." "I tried to show you," Vanessa said, no anger in her voice, just plain, level fact. "You waved it away before you even looked at it." "I get people out here all the time claiming to be something they're not," Grant said, his voice tightening. "I was just trying to keep the ramp secure." "I understand that instinct," Vanessa said. "But security means actually checking the credential in front of you, not deciding in advance what it's going to say. If I'd been someone with bad intentions instead of a federal inspector, waving me off without looking wouldn't have kept anyone safe either. It would have just meant you never found out until it was too late." Grant absorbed that for a long moment, something visibly shifting behind his eyes, the full weight of what almost happened settling into him far more heavily than the earlier embarrassment had. "That latch," he said quietly. "If you hadn't caught it—" "I caught it because I was still watching from the fence line," Vanessa said. "Not because anyone here asked me to check something they'd already decided was fine." Skybridge's formal review, conducted over the following weeks, confirmed Vanessa's findings entirely, identifying a broader pattern of rushed pre-flight procedures across several ground crew shifts, not just the one that morning. The company implemented mandatory retraining on cargo door latch verification, added a secondary confirmation step to their pre-departure checklist, and Grant Pierce, rather than losing his position entirely, was required to complete the same retraining as his crew, a consequence he accepted without argument once the full picture of that morning had settled in for him. Vanessa didn't ask for an apology beyond the one he'd already offered, and she didn't need one. Her report to the FAA focused entirely on the mechanical finding and the procedural gap that had allowed it, not on the personal exchange at the fence line, because in her experience, the credential mattered less than what people did once the facts were finally in front of them. And Grant, to his credit, hadn't argued with the facts once they were. I spoke with Inspector Cole sometime after that morning, and I asked her what she remembered most clearly about it. She said it wasn't the confrontation at the fence, and it wasn't the moment the aircraft rolled to a stop 30 seconds before takeoff. It was the 15 minutes in between, standing at a perimeter fence after being told to leave, choosing to keep doing her job exactly the way she would have done it from inside the gate, because the job never actually depended on whether Grant Pierce believed her badge was real. She told me something else, too, something she'd carried with her since her earliest days as an inspector, back when doors got closed in her face more often than they got opened. She said the people who dismiss you fastest are usually the ones who end up needing you most, and that the smile she'd given Grant that morning wasn't politeness. It was patience, the kind that comes from already knowing exactly how the story was going to end, whether or not the other person believed it yet. At 35,000 feet, or 30 seconds from a runway threshold, it's never about how quickly someone accepts your credentials. It's about whether you keep doing the job right either way. Now here's what I want to know from you. Have you ever been dismissed by someone who didn't bother to actually look at what you were showing them, only to be proven right later? Tell me about it in the comments. I read every single one, and some of the best stories on this channel started exactly there. I'm Captain Marcus Brooks. Thanks for flying with me tonight. If this story moved you, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you on the next flight.